there's people outside watching me, so I think I'm just going to keep the gun down low so that way they don't spot me and yeah, they've got kids. G'day everyone, welcome to another video by myself, Android EFT. And of course, welcome to part 1 of the How to Halo 3 Assault Rifle with EVA Foam for Beginners. So to show those of you who are interested, this is what you're going to get by the end of the tutorials. It's a very simple but effective looking prop made from the foam itself. Nothing different, it's all solely been made out of EVA foam. Now it does look rather raw, it's still got a lot of standing dust still on it. That's because I literally just finished it to allow these videos to come out on time. These videos will take you through step by step, literally step by step, through all the stages in going from cutting out the basic templates to actually getting this done and dusted. Now to rate the difficulty, I will give it a 7 out of 10. It does sit in the higher numbers of a difficulty level because it does involve quite a bit of new techniques to learn if you are learning EVA film or trying for the first time, but nothing I wouldn't recommend giving a go for beginners, as this video should allow the process to be told in a very easy way so you guys can follow literally stage by stage and step by step. And of course, to kick it off and make it easier for you, you can get the templates which I personally designed myself to best serve EVA foam. I've changed the design slightly from the original Halo 3 version, but none that you guys won't notice unless you go and nitpick, look for it now. But it's just a few changes of the lines and the symmetry just to allow the construction to be done a lot easier. Of course, remember this is just a basic stage, so you can take it further if you wish, customize it how you want, and really turn it into the gun you want rather than the basic one you can currently see on screen. But if you want those templates, grab them from the link in the description box below for free and save them to your computer, print them out and get going in the video. Otherwise, that's enough intro, we'll jump straight in. Good luck, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so to kick things off, all you're going to need is get basic crafting materials. We've got the ones on screen which will be the essentials for these tutorials, as well as the templates, which of course you can print off. Once you've got those templates printed off, we can jump in and get straight into actually creating. So what you can do is you can tape them all together, so that we should have all 4 on screen like this, and then we can cut out the main center core piece of the assault rifle. And then what we'll do is we'll actually break it apart into 3 sections, so we should have the 3 broken apart like so. And we'll grab the internal section and we'll trace it out onto the foam. Now it has been scaled, so it should fit on just the standard tiled mats that you find. And what of course we're going to do is we're going to make 3 sections out of this foam, being sure to flip at least one of them so that we have a left and a right side and not all one-sided shapes, because we don't really want that texture side to be there. Then what you're going to do is we're going to start breaking the template apart even further. So we'll cut out this section of the magazine area and then trace it back on to the foam so we know exactly where it's going to be. Be sure to do that on both the left and the right side, and they should relatively be in the exact same spot as you're using the negative space on the template. Then what you can do is you can grab a nice sharp craft blade and actually cut out the segments out of the foam. So that way we're actually removing them, and the 2 sides should have them completely cut clean and free away from the main core. Now what you're going to do is you're going to draw a line through the middle of that magazine section. That way we can actually run a blade through the center and actually cut it in half. This is going to create an extra level, or I suppose a newer level. So that way, instead of having the 2 stages of the foam's thickness, we've now got 3. It just adds some more detail and creates a better 3D look down the line. Once you've done that, of course, we should have now both the left and the right side cut out and in half. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same process, but to where the handle section is on this rifle. So what you can do is cut it out of the templates, then transfer the negative space onto the foam, and then use the sharp craft blade to actually cut the segment out of the foam, remember, both on the left and the right sides. Then of course rule out the line through the middle and then simply cut it in half, making sure your fingers are well and truly away from the blade, so that way if you do manage to accidentally slice through the wrong section, it's not going to catch your finger. Then of course what we're going to do now is we're going to grab the left and the right side and actually glue them together to the main center core piece. The center core piece of course does not have any negative spaces that we've cut out. It should be the full solid piece. And as you can see, we've got those negative spaces in there that will of course go ahead and glue in those sections which we cut out earlier. All you need to do is simply put in some hot glue or put in some art cement and just stick them into position. Nothing too difficult and nothing too hard. Alright, so now we can move on. What we'll now start to do is really add all this internal detail. Now this is going to be a very step-by-step section because I want you guys to be able to see where we've come from and where we're going. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to break apart the template. What we'll first do is we'll actually use a blade to cut out all these internal segments you can see on the screen, and we'll use the negative sections of the template to actually transfer their exact locations on the foam into place. Of course, I recommend just doing it lightly when you're transferring it across. You can then go back with a nice sharp and straight edge to clean them up and make sure those lines are horizontal and symmetrical in position. Then what we're going to do is break it apart even further, add some more of these lines. So we can cut away these segments, cutting it right down through the middle, and then add in that horizontal line you can see pointed there on screen. Then what we'll do is we'll start to break it apart even further along the guided lines that have been laid out on the template and transfer in all those lines needed. Of course, all you're doing is cutting away at the template, placing it onto the foam where it used to be, and tracing out those lines. Remember, you can go back and make it cleaner and sharper using a ruler later, but make sure you just get them on. Now we can start making some of the cooler detail, but we are still following the exact same process that we've just been doing in the past few minutes. Of course, that is cutting out the template, placing it onto the foam, and adding all the negative spacing using that template to make sure it all sits on that foam symmetrical and the same on both sides. So right now, of course, we're cutting apart these individual sections on this kind of L-shaped piece, so that way it all sits in there rather nicely. Now, if this is maybe a bit simple for you, you can, of course, add your own customized features, make this a bit larger if you want, add more layers, but right now this is aimed at beginners to give you guys a good start and an understanding of how we can go about making this on the most basic level, so that way you can enhance your skills over time and change it how you wish. So what we're working on now is we're adding this top section, which of course is where the cocking mechanism or the charging mechanism is for the for the rifle. Now what we're going to do is of course cut out this circle piece, transfer that onto the foam, and what we're going to do is we're going to now break apart this template even further, cutting it in half or cutting it on a third line, adding it in horizontally. Now this is the lower section of where we're going to bevel, so we need to add in the top section, which is the depth level, which you can do about maybe halfway through one of those layers of foam. What we're going to do now is make sure, and this is quite key, you have a very nice sharp craft blade. I would recommend changing it out now, making sure you've got a brand new one, so that way we can bevel the edges. Now beveling is when you're cutting through a corner, say on a 45-degree angles, but we're meeting that lower line and that top line which we just drew in. You can see that my foam isn't tearing, it's giving a nice slope. That is only achieved because we have a nice clean and sharp blade. Without it, you'll tear the foam and it won't look so pretty. Now what you can do is one of the fun and most intense parts of this, and definitely the most patient and skilled you're going to need to be. What we're going to do is we're going to grab a sharp craft blade, well, it's always going to be a sharp craft blade, and score the lines that we've drawn out. Now scoring, for those of you who are learning this for the first time, is when you run the blade through the top layer of the foam. You're not cutting, you're not intending to cut through the foam, you're just cutting the top layer of the skin, so to speak, so that way it breaks the surface, and when we heat it up it leaves a nice enlarged area, but I'll get to that when we get to it in the video. You'll see what I mean. Now of course what we're doing is we're repeating the same process that we've done, cutting out that template and adding all these little sections in place to make sure that it does sit there nicely on the foam. What we are going to be doing now and very soon is we're going to actually start beveling the top section of this, which is what this part here is for. We're going to add this kind of perimeter line on, which will act, like I said, as the lower level, and then we need to add that depth level in on top, which we can see is about halfway through one of those layers, or the exterior layer of the foam. Then of course with that sharp craft blade you can go in and bevel that edge again. If you are still learning this, I recommend maybe testing it on a scrap piece of paper, scrap piece of foam. That way you're not going to bugger up your actual rifle when you're still trying to learn it. Now you can jump in with your craft blade and actually score these lines we've actually created here. Of course, it's nothing too difficult, you're just going over the lines we've initially drawn into the foam, so that way it breaks the surface, and of course we'll create detail later on when we run it through the heat treatment. But now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and break apart the butt section of this assault rifle a bit further. So cutting away this section you can see here on the screen, and making 2 copies. We only need 2, of course, for a left and a right, which will add an extra layer to the back section, giving it a bit more of a 3D appearance. Now what you can do is you can grab the template and actually cut it along the line that I've done here. Reason for this is we're going to start transferring some beveling lines on, so that way we can actually make this a bit more 3D rather than the flat section it currently is. So cutting the template apart like this, we can cut apart the bottom layer of it, so we should have these 2 horizontal lines drawn in like so. Once you've of course got those horizontal lines in, you can draw the depth lines in. We want to make this as deep as possible, but not going all the way to the end of the foam. So leaving about a few millimeters on screen like you can see will give us the nice lip that we need. And of course, all you need to do is make sure you have a very nice sharp craft blade. I would suggest maybe changing it out if you haven't already recently, and go through this section very carefully, but making sure you keep the momentum going with the craft blade so you come out with a very nice clean slope like you can see there on screen. Very nice indeed. And yeah, actually I would recommend changing the blade out now, making sure that that section was done with a brand new sharp one. Now just to be annoying, I'm going to get you to actually masking tape or tape up the template back together. So putting in those 2 sections we cut out and actually put them back together, unless you want to print out a brand new one, that's up to you. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut along the templates that are actually marked in the design, so we should have this nice rectangle like so. The reason we're doing this is because this is going to be an extra bit of detail that will of course be beveled and will stand out. So we're adding in this rectangular section here in the back part of this EVA foam section, and simply just scoring it. And once you've done that, you can glue it into position, which should align pretty well, unless you've somehow mishappened your templates, and it should look pretty awesome like that. Now we're nearing the end of this video, so what we'll do is we'll quickly finish it off by adding in these tiny bits of detail. Simply cutting out the little square section at the bottom of this template and drawing that in. You can just freehand that if you wish, or you can actually cut out the template and put it in. Once the lines are on the foam, simply grab your craft blade, score it, and then we'll cut out the back section. The way we're going to do this is just simply cut it out of the paper template and chuck it in the back there. You can actually, if you want, just freehand that vertical line straight down, but what you will need to do for this section is to cut off that back little perimeter line, and we'll add that into the foam to give us this section where we are going to bevel it. So you will need to add in that depth line somewhere maybe halfway through one of the layers of foam, and then of course, like you did before, grab your craft blade and simply just carve through that nicely, keeping the momentum so that way the foam comes off with a very nice and clean look. This will of course allow the butt of the rifle to give it a bit more of a 3D and curved appearance rather than the very vertical 90-degree angle it currently is. So that's it. Hopefully you guys managed to follow along and you do now have it to where we should be. Of course, all that's left now to do is continue with the videos and take the extra steps needed to really flesh out and bring that Halo 3 assault rifle to life. Now you're probably wondering what all this white stuff is that's all over it. That's just residue as well as art clay, which is a nice little cheap and affordable and easy to find clay that can go on top, sand it down to really cover up the seams, so that way it looks like a solid piece rather than multiple layers of the foam. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, definitely give it a like. If you want to see other props or other designs been done in this tutorial form for you guys as beginners, definitely let me know what ones you'd like to see in the comments below. And otherwise, click part 2 at the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys later.